Guys, something crazy happening that I want you all to know. I got a new green screen. So.
Dark Cloud. This is a game that I have very vague memories of because I only played it once as a kid, as I just rented it from the Blockbuster down the street. Yes, kids, back in the day, you used to be able to go to the store and for a small fee, you could borrow a game for the weekend. Nowadays, kids are just all about their fork knives and making fancy Tic Tacs. Anyways, Dark Cloud is an action RPG that released in North America in 2001 by Level 5 Inc. Level 5 developed a plethora of games, most notably Dark Cloud 1 and 2, Ni no Kuni, and Dragon Quest IX. Since I never got past the first dungeon as a kid, basically because I lacked a ton of free time, I figured what better time to jump into this game now that I'm an adult who lacks a ton of free time. We will be discussing early story elements and then late game characters and weapons, so slight spoilers in this review. However, this game did come out over 20 years ago, so you do you. So the game starts off with a pretty crisp intro, and right from the beginning, you get a feel for the type of vibes this game will deliver on. Not to be taken too seriously, but fun, vibrant colors and pretty clean UI designs, very reminiscent of some of the Dreamcast RPGs we've done videos on previously. Also, I'm no lawyer, so I know very little about copyrights and trademarks. However, this dance from the intro cutscene was 100% ripped off of Michael Jackson's Thriller, and I won't be told otherwise. Anyways, here we're introduced to the plot and main characters in this incredibly long intro scene, which is not terrible, but I would much prefer to jump straight into the game and then slowly be drip-fed the plot and character motivations. I know this was just very customary of RPGs around this time, but I can now see why I struggled so much to get into this game as a kid. Now, being an adult, I do appreciate the little nuances and quirkiness of the cutscenes, but wow, the pacing is so bad. Once we finally get to control our character, nope, it's more cutscenes and more intellectual property theft of dances. The genie from the first few scenes shows up and begins 360 no-scoping villages and improving on his KD ratio quite dramatically. We decide to try and save our friend who's about to be crushed by falling debris by diving underneath the falling debris with her. So luckily, this creepy old man revives us and gifts us with this legendary amulet, the Atlammalia. Atlammalia? One thing this game does do really well is its tutorials. Each time you're introduced with a new mechanic, you're shown this really cool, like, coloring book illustration that I thought was just a really nice touch, and I hadn't really seen it in many other games. We're told that the Dark Genie, who showed up in the previous scenes, has destroyed the entire world, and the old man has gifted us with the Atlammalia and saved the world and put it in these small spheres and scattered them. Basically, our goal is to collect spheres and restore the world. With all of that out of the way, we can finally start the game. Kinda. So I mentioned that the pacing was bad, but that's not just because of the intro cutscenes. The game also pretty much just has to walk you through the entire progression of the game and how it's going to work through this entire first section. We're left in this barren village with only the village chief's house, who tells us to enter the Divine Beast cave to find the rest of the pieces of the village. In this cave, we're met with more colorful storybook tutorials as the creepy old man shows up each time we make it to a new floor of the dungeon. This is where we also learn that our character only knows one reaction to anything he hears or sees in this entire game. Not even kidding. That's all he's got. Well, that's not true. Later on in the game, he does get a dialogue box. So, character growth. So the object of each floor is to fight monsters until you get a key that will help you progress to the next floor. While you're progressing, you also want to unlock the spheres or the Atla, which we'll get into more a bit later. The key to the next floor is random amongst the monsters, so sometimes it's the first monster you kill, sometimes it's the last. Also, each dungeon has its own type of key, which is pretty cool. For instance, the first dungeon, you basically just get a key that opens a door. In the second dungeon, however, you get a random assortment of owl snacks. So you have to keep looking until you find the one that the owl will let you progress to the next floor. The combat early on is incredibly atrocious and tedious, since it's very difficult to get close enough to an enemy to hit them without being hit yourself. And not having many items to work with means we constantly have to go back and forth between the dungeon and the village chief's house, who will give us more items every time we take damage or we're poisoned from a bat. On top of this, the game also has a weapon durability system. That's right, your weapons break if you use them too much. I've rarely seen good use of a weapon durability system in any game, and this game is no exception. Your weapons will break incredibly fast if you forget to repair them, and they'll be gone for good. The weapons in this game are extremely important, and they can take hours upon hours to level up and improve, so losing a weapon is a huge deal. All it takes is for you to be listening to a podcast or watching TV while you're just grinding out some levels, and losing your focus for just one brief moment means days of progress can be gone. Not that happened to me or anything.
Got him!
It also just wreaks havoc on your inventory space because you have to carry so many weapon repair powders around just in case. So it's just an annoying mechanic overall. Bad game design, level 5.
Bad.
However, this does lead me to what I think is the coolest part of the game, and that is the weapon progression system. The characters in this game don't gain experience or level up. Instead, you find special items to increase their defense or their health, but the way you increase your damage output is to level up your weapons. Each character starts off with a default weapon, but you can find more in the dungeons or purchase more at the shop. Each weapon can be built up into stronger weapons when they gain enough stats, or you can status break them, which will allow you to take 60% of the weapon's attributes and put them into another weapon. That was just a brief description of the weapon system because it's incredibly in-depth, and it's just, there's so much there that I really urge you to play this game yourself if you want to know more about it. However, that was by far the highlight of the game for me. With all that out of the way, we can finally progress through the dungeon and make it to our first Dance Dance Revolution mini boss. What? You didn't think there would be a rhythm mini game in Dark Cloud?
Get a load of this guy.
Luckily, if you get it perfect, you do get a special item, which is usually like a gem that you can put into your weapons. And if you lose, you're allowed to just restart and try again. After defeating knockoff Sephiroth in the epic dance battle, we return to the village and begin assembling the pieces of Atla that we found so far. So this discount Sim City clone it's actually pretty fun. As you add more pieces of the town, you unlock more villagers, more items, and more mini games. If you construct the city well enough and to each person's recommendations, you even get unique items to help you on your quest. This is where we also gained our first party member in a cutscene that's much like all the rest. It's awkward. With our new party member, however, we are able to progress through the dungeon and meet up with our first boss. Hey guys, editing Wada here. I just realized after looking through some of the clips that there's quite a few other awkward cutscenes, and this one I just feel like I have to show you guys. So anyways, yeah, I just wanted to put that in there. But back to the video. Bye. Now the boss fights in this game are extremely tedious, and they're quite annoying. Once you figure out their pattern and understand the strategy, you still have to just commit and do the thing. Also, it usually only takes a few hits for you to die and have to restart completely, so it is really important that you just focus all the way through so you don't have to go through the fight again. But once the fight is over, we're finally done with the tutorial dungeon, and we can now move on to the next village. The remainder of the game follows the same progression as the last area. You find a new empty village, enter the dungeon, unlock the pieces of Atla, do weird Dance Dance Revolution minigames, unlock new characters that help you progress, then you fight a tedious boss. The party members you unlock have their own strengths and weaknesses, and they even have their own default weapons. You have hammer-wielding Goro, awkward slingshot Catgirl Shao, waste of space spear user Ungaga, dope boss bitch Ruby, and finally everyone's favorite Final Fantasy IX character, Osmond. Honestly, once I unlocked Ruby, I used her for 90% of the game, mainly because she's a ranged character, but also she's stronger than majority of the melee characters. And then once we got Osmond after that, I really only switched between the two. He's got a freaking machine gun. Now the overall music in this game, it's pretty decent. It's your typical campy, fun, classic RPG music where the songs just loop over and over while you're in a dungeon for hours, but oddly enough, it never gets too annoying. There are a few cool boss themes and village themes as well, but overall, the game just does a pretty good job of not letting the soundtrack get in the way at all. The story overall is extremely bare bones and could honestly be told in the beginning and ending cutscene, and pretty much is, but I didn't mind it because once you start the game, there's not a lot of lore dumping in between, and it's just the grind, and you're basically just playing the game. While there were a few cool story moments, for the most part, there's just tons of unexplored plot lines, and it doesn't really dive deeper into any of the characters' backstories, but overall it's not a huge turnoff. The game was enjoyable, the artwork was fun, the characters and weapon system allows you to play the game multiple different ways, and the game did a great job of keeping me busy for about 30 hours. I thoroughly enjoyed being able to arrange the villages any way that I wanted, and the weapon system is something that I really wish more games would adopt. Overall, I'd have to give this game 6 Altamalia Atla watermelons out of 10. Once again, thank you so much to our ever-growing Patreon members. I love each and every one of you, and you're all the greatest. To the rest of you bozos that happen to like this game, might want to check out our Time Stalkers review, which has a much similar vibe.